So Kendo is the type of martial art that requires a lot of practice to master. And so as coaches, we need to figure out the best ways to help our students to develop the skill sets that they need to do well. And that's exactly what we're talking about today, the types of skills that there are in Kendo and the best ways to teach those to our students. So first up, there are two important skill types to think about in Kendo. There's open and there's closed. So open skills are those that require athletes to make quick decisions under pressure. Think, for example, in a jigeko situation where the other person is moving around and trying to hit you while you are trying to figure out the best way to hit him first. There's heaps going on and none of it's overly predictable. So this is what we call an open skill. On the other hand, closed skills are way more predictable and can be planned in advance. So we see how practicing Menuchi 5 times in a row is a way in which we can minimize distractions and focus on the movements of a cut. And the motodachi lets you through instead of trying to counterattack. So basically, when there's predictability and minimal distractions, we're practicing a closed skill. And when the opponent is coming at us, we switch into needing to use our open skill set. So now let's talk about the complexity of skills. Some skills are simple and can be learned with very little practice, while others are way more complex and take time and effort to acquire. So for example, a simple skill might be haraiwaza. You hit the shinai up or to the side and then execute the cut. A more complex skill, like a taiatari hikiwaza combo, has a lot more moving parts and is therefore way more complicated or complex to learn. But so what? So as a coach, we need to use different coaching techniques depending on the type of skill we're teaching. For simple and closed skills, you can use drills to develop the necessary movements. And many of us use this approach a lot in our regular training, and it's really great for when you have a large number of people or even when there's different abilities all in the same keiko. Everyone knows what to do, there's not much guesswork, and the technique can be practiced with minimal distraction and maximum predictability. And that means that we can get a good amount of purposeful practice in without too much hassle. But there are other ways to do it, and that's really great to know if you don't love leading from the front, as in yelling orders to big groups of people, or if you're focusing on training way more complex skills. A couple of great approaches are the whole part whole method and chaining. So the whole part whole method is where students practice the whole skill first to get a feel for it, and then break it into steps to fine tune before going back to the whole skill again. Now, this is a great approach for coaching beginners, but it can also be used for seniors who are working on more complex things. And so for those of you who don't want to be out the front all the time, the whole part whole method lets you put people into groups or into pairs, and they help each other to fine tune and give feedback on their progress. And then we have chaining, and chaining is basically where we chain or link a series of movements together one by one as students become more proficient at the complex skill. So I've used this approach in the past to help people learn the rhythm and the flow of kakarigeko. For example, we start with a men attack and make sure it's an ippon. If it's not, the motodachi shakes his head and the person has another go until they get it and the motodachi signals, yes, that was a good ippon. Then they add a small kote with a taiatari. Same again, motodachi signals that it was a good one, and then they carry on perhaps with a kote men taiatari hikido, and so on until they're attacking quickly and with quality. And once the flow of the cuts is on point, you can build from there or have them make their own openings. The point is that the super complex skill of kakarigeko is built up bit by bit through chaining more simplistic skills together. So problem solving, this is by far my favorite method for coaching complex and open skills. In this approach, we set up mini scenarios, a lot like an important moment in a shiai, like for example, when there's 30 seconds left on the clock and one ippon is required to win, or when we're facing an opponent who blocks all the time. So this becomes a super hands-off approach to coaching because we let the students investigate and discover the techniques that could work in a more realistic situation, at least way more realistic than doing the drill approach. So encourage your students to ask questions of you, their training partners, and even themselves so they can start to develop their decision-making skills in a game context. After all, we're not always going to be there to be able to give them a direct advice on what to do every single moment they're on the floor in a shiai or a grading. And finally, mental practice. Now, this is another technique that can be used to develop closed and open skills, as well as super complex ones. And this also might be a real game changer for a lot of Kendo coaches, because the research has consistently shown how effective things like visualization and imagery can be on performance. So as a coach, have a dig around on YouTube for some great examples of high-level Kendoka demonstrating or performing a skill, and send these out to your students to watch and create a picture in their mind. They can bring these mental pictures to training, but it also means that they're practicing the techniques and the skills even when they're not in the dojo. Honestly, this has a massive difference over time, and like I said, there's a whole bunch of research on high-performance athletes using this approach to their advantage. Finally, guys, it's important to remember that coaching is a continuous process, and as athletes progress and develop new skills, we as coaches need to adjust and adapt our coaching techniques to match those needs. So this means staying up to date with the latest training techniques and methodologies, as well as regularly evaluating and adjusting training plans to ensure that athletes are making progress and improving their skills. I hope you guys found this information helpful. If you did, please boop the like button and tell your mates to check out this channel. Really grateful. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next episode.